So this video turned out to be really difficult. We had started with using CDK, but as you will see, CDK didn't work, and because of that we pivoted back to record this just using the AWS console, and we're going to look at all of the new announcements of AWS CodePipeline that we got in the fall of 2024. See how to use them, see how they help you to get better, and see the failures that Rafael and I had as part of this recording as well. So really entertaining. Please have a look and let us know how you found this video and give us some feedback. So we have deployed that example project, and as you can see, we now have our stack deployed over here. This is the wrong stack that I wanted to show. Let me just reload this page and then look at it again, right? So we have the queue that has been deployed over here, and it has been deployed manually from my own environment. And now we want to look at deploying this through CodePipeline. We did a lengthy recording to do this with CDK. We then got to a stage where we found out that CDK does currently not support out of the box creating V2 pipelines. There is a way to do that, but you're going to need to fall back to L1, L2 constructs. And that's not what we want to do, especially because there's the functionality that we want to test is that commands action that we talked about, where you don't need a code project anymore, right? So this is the thing that we want to show. And to be honest, that thing is not available in CDK. So we're going to go to what I always advocate to not do, to the console. We're going to create a pipeline from scratch, and we're going to see what happens. I don't know. What do we have here? Continuous integration, build a Node.js project. I think that
Node.js, that sounds fine.
But the question is, if I do that, is this now going to tell me to use a code build project? I don't want to do that, but let's see. Source provider is going to be GitHub.
GitHub.
I don't have an enterprise server, so I need to connect to GitHub. Let's see. This is my name. What did I do? I want to use this one. That's correct. And I have now created that connection. I have an app already installed that I want to use. And now I have a connection. And now I should be able to, I have a bunch of useless repositories
Just
over
search.
Here. This is the one. We're going to pick the main branch and we're going to move on. Now we have the template, and as you can see, this is what is going to execute. I don't think that we want to do that. We can do npm install, and then npm test looks good.
Maybe use it as a baseline and then modify it afterwards.
Okay, let's do that.
Because maybe these steps are okay for your project, and maybe after you have to run some tests, you want to do some fancy stuff.
Yeah, while we are on this, right? This is the announcement that we're currently showing. That was announced in October. The new simplified version of getting started with code build was announced, and this is essentially the screen that we have been looking at over here, which also simplifies a lot of the setup, right? So I'm curious to see whether now under the hood this will use the commands action directly because we have entered that over here, or if it will be creating a code build project. So it actually gives me a CloudFormation template over here, if I recall correctly.
That is okay.
That is interesting.
But it probably don't include the new commands. I think these are templates, so they are like a wizard for this template and just filling out parameters. And I think they did not change the template for the now.
As you can see, I have a code build now over here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but at least the pipeline is there and is being executed. Now, we also see that this is a V2 pipeline. That's essentially what we wanted. And we see that the build failed. I don't want to look at why the build failed right now. Let's first try to get a command in here, right? So if I go to edit the pipeline, I should now be able to add a stage, if I recall correctly, test commands, and this one should hopefully give me a possibility to execute AWS commands. That's what I want to do. Finally, ls and AWS sts get caller identity. That's the interesting piece. Action name, test commands. And as an input, we're going to give it the source input that we already have. And let's see what happens. And as you can see in CodePipeline, I'm able to execute multiple actions per stage. And I can add multiple stages. There's a lot of other options for CodePipeline. We didn't want to do a deep dive today, but if you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments. Then I can record something around how to use CodeBuild a little bit better than today, as we wanted to focus on some of the cool announcements. So we did this. Now, what always worries me when using CodePipeline is up here, the button release change. I'm actually not going to release a change. I just want to run this pipeline again, right? So this is always a little bit misleading, at least from my perspective. So pipeline execution is down here. Now it goes to get to commands. As you can see, we did not need a CodeBuild project for this. We can now look at the log files for that, and we will hopefully see the outputs of our ls and our AWS get caller identity commands.
So what's the benefit of using this command in comparison to a CodeBuild?
Well, setting up a CodeBuild project takes is a longer thing to do usually, right? Which you essentially don't always need if you just want to do some quick automation executions and things like that. And that's I think what it summarizes. And we can now see that it failed. The service role doesn't have permissions to send log files, which is obviously why we don't see anything here. Now, where did we do that? Maybe
go back to edit and go back to the test command. Maybe there's a reference to a role, or we need to configure it.
There is no role. I think we missed to update the service role for this one. There's the service role that is used for this pipeline. And out of the box, it seems like the service role doesn't have any permissions to put to CloudWatch.
Okay, so
add permissions, attach permissions. This is interesting. So this should be fixed in the template. CloudWatch.
CloudWatch log groups, maybe.
Well, we can give it full access, I guess. Well, we shouldn't do that, but for this example, we can. Let's try. But here, once again, dear CodeBuild team, please fix the templates to include the permissions for the service role that you generated, because I think that would be really helpful.
So what else? What use cases would you have for a command execution? Is there something that pops in your mind?
Use cases. Well, you can do queries to AWS APIs with that. You can do automation scenarios in that. You can effectively use CodePipeline in the same way that you could be using a step function if you want to, right? Because you can now, without all of the mess of setting up projects around that, you can directly execute commands out of the pipeline. You don't need to have a CodeBuild project for that anymore, which simplifies the starting point a little bit, as far as I see it. So those would be things that I can do. I can obviously also directly call other services from here. I can access and query my AWS account, or maybe also another account. yeah, I think that's one of those are the benefits that I see with this. And as you can see, the commands have been executed, and we're getting that this is the role that is being used, which is the one that we just
Nice.
changed as well.
I actually see some other cases as well. So I think AWS is trying to catch up with GitHub Actions in this case, because with GitHub Actions, you can define pipelines or workflows that are interacting not only with the code, also doing other stuff like notifying things, trigger other things. And for these use cases, now you can use the same GitHub webhook integration from GitHub, for example, or GitLab or whatever you use, and trigger other workflow steps or notifications within your organization. Don't have to use the setup a code build project with massive setup of efforts and just invoke something and or maybe invalidate in CloudFront distribution or stuff like that by anything by a trigger from GitHub.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. But there is already other integration points with other AWS services, right? So I think the main point here really should be simplification. But as we saw in the earlier part of the recording, it's not that simple to get started with CodePipeline, right? So I cannot just put that into my GitHub repository, and from the GitHub repository then execute the pipeline, right? That's not as simple as that. So I think there's still a lot of things to do in order to make that a little bit easier. Yeah, so I think we demoed that first part that we wanted to do. Let's check where's my command section reference. This is the
Can
one
we
that we
see
wanted.
now a CloudFormation template for this pipeline? So we could see what we need to do manually in CDK. Is there some kind of export or
I don't know.
view as
Let's see.
CloudFormation for this pipeline?
Yes, there is a code. There is a template that has been generated.
Okay, so what is the actual resource for this command?
Well, the template will not have the changes that we introduced manually now. So it's not synchronized, right? So if I go to
Not the one. I was thinking maybe the CodePipeline UI has an export as CloudFormation.
We could try the drift detection in this one. So I think there is. So here there is no export as far as I know. Let me just save that. Yeah, okay. I need an action. Let me get rid of this one again. Delete. And then save. So there is no possibility to export this one as far as I know. And also in settings, there is no possibility to export this either, right? So if I manually create a pipeline, there is no possibility to get that into infrastructure as code. The only way would be to go to CloudFormation and ask CloudFormation to generate that for me.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's see if there is a drift now, because ideally we would now see the drift. So this is essentially the drift that I was talking about. We modified the pipeline, right? I can now look at view drift details, and now we can see that over here, actions, right? We added test commands. Now where are our commands? They should be here somewhere as well. Can you see our commands? I'm looking for the AWS caller identity. So it looks like the drift detection has not captured the details behind that, right?
Looks like that.
So this is not really what we were hoping for. Because now I actually, after modifying the pipeline online, right, I kind of have a state in CloudFormation that is not accurate anymore. So
I'm actually a little surprised how that. So it's detecting a drift, but if the command is not part of the configuration, where is the configuration stored?
that's, I would say, let's call this a different type of problem that we don't want to look at now in this video. And let's look at it. One of the other announcements that CodePipeline has been announcing. Maybe let's look at this one, right? This one says that in AWS CodePipeline V2, we have the possibility to automatically retry a change if a stage if there is a failure in the stage. A stage fails if any action in the stage fails. To use the automatic retry, we can set the retry result. So let's try that. And then using the commands option, we should be able to, or we can just use the failed pipeline over here, right? And see what happens to when we try to set that up. Let's go to this one. Let's go to editing this stage. And now, how do I set up a retry? Enable automatic retry on stage failure. Retry mode. Retried failed stage or retried failed actions.
Okay, that's nice.
That
I mean,
is,
you could retry the full stage or just the failed action, depending what
then
your
let's try that.
stage does.
And I'm going to add another action here just to showcase how this would work.
I'm actually curious what will retried. So I don't want to have an infinite loop for that. So
yes, let's see what happens. Because we know that this piece is going to fail. And we are going to save this. This is a strange UI. Every time you need to go up to save. And now let's release a change. Yay! So it's already here.
That's the test command we added before. It's executing, and then it should fail in the next stage.
It hopefully fails. But this takes too long for executing commands. So I'm curious why, to be honest. So yes, I'm a very impatient person. Okay, so this one worked. And you can see this moving on the right-hand side.
I mean, maybe they made it easier for us as developer to specify these commands, but technically they still need to spin up some environment to execute the command.
Yeah, so there was another announcement around CodePipeline. I think it was like 8 months ago, potentially, where you can now use Lambda to execute your builds. I wonder if they use that under the hood over here.
Would make sense.
So now we can see that these two actions are running. So the announcement that I'm talking about here is it was code build code. No, that's not true. It was an announcement for code build, I think. November. So it was like, 12 months ago. They announced that code build can now run on AWS Lambda. But as we don't know what is running under the hood, right? Maybe that's a problem because code build is well known for being slow in starting up different stages. Okay, now we can see that over here we have an auto retry attempt. It failed again. So it looks like it failed twice or once at least. Now, how often will it try to retry? I think that was only once now, right?
I think it's retrying once.
Yes, that's what it is. I wonder if I can set that up somewhere, but I don't think so.
I'm actually interested in, maybe someone watching this video can put it in the comment. What are your use cases for a retry count of once? What
Well,
will you use it for?
yeah, I can think of it like being if you have flunky tests or things like that, right?
But then why not configure it with how many retries I want to use? Because maybe once is okay, but
True. Okay, so we demoed this piece, right? Automatic retry and state failure. Now let's look at the next one, which is AWS CodePipeline introduces skipping a stage. So you can now skip a stage as a result of a stage level condition evaluation. What the hell is
okay.
that?
Okay. So let's say we have a first stage like build, and we identified, okay, there's actually no change in application A, so we might can skip the deployment of application A.
Okay, let's try that. Skip this stage. And
Is it
now
stage or action?
I think the announcement talks about skipping stages, right?
Okay. Or
So
maybe, or another example could be if you just have README changes, then you can skip the deployment totally.
now I can skip this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can add a rule. And I can say, if I'm not in a deployment window, I want to move on. If I'm not in if I have a lambda function, or I can integrate with a
Maybe go
variable
with
check.
variable check.
Skip stage. Maybe true.
Yes, that's good. Skip when true. That's the best name for a rule.
I could have called it Raphael if you want to. um, okay, let's
Now we
save
need to
that
have
one.
a step that is generating this variable, right?
Oh, I don't know. Do we? Oh, we need to have an action again. I forgot about that.
There is the variables part. Maybe specify the name of the variable in your environment you want to export. In this case, we can set it to true or
Yeah,
set the
well,
name.
but this is the action that we want to fail, so we need to go to
Oh,
the one before.
yeah.
I have a name. Ah, yeah. So this means that over here in the test commands, right, we want to edit the stage and we want to say skip stage. And then we need to say export skip stage equals true.
Okay.
I guess that's the way that it would work. And we're going to release a change, and it's going to take another 5 minutes to run this again. So we will see that the second time that I execute a pipeline, it goes a little bit faster because let's call it, there is a kind of a warm start period for pipelines that are being executed on the AWS side, right? So they not directly delete the environment again. They keep it until kind of I'm done. I don't know when they shut it down, but this sometimes speeds up the next 2 or 3 builds that we actually have being executed. So that's pretty handy. Still, I find this whole setup of CodePipeline a little bit too cumbersome for me, right? It is very powerful. It has a lot of integrations, but it's not as lightweight as other CI/CD tools that we have.
Yes, I can totally agree to that. You need to have, first of all, learn all the terms, all the concepts behind the pipeline and jobs and and actions and builds and all that stuff to be able to click the stuff together. Skipping stage release.
Job failed. Entry conditions with skip result configured have failed. Skipping stage release. And it goes to the next one. That's good.
That's good, but if someone on AWS hears a red arrow flag like failed for something that is intentionally skipped, I don't know if that's a good user experience.
Yeah, but maybe this is how it should work because the skip action really failed. So maybe let's try to look into the log files, right? So what I'm trying to say is maybe the variable was not set, and because it didn't find the variable, it kind of failed. So I can go to the execution history, and I should be able to see.
But even then, I would imagine that it only skips the stage if the requirement, the rule matches, otherwise just execute it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm trying to get to the CloudWatch logs for this, but
Hopefully
I'm
we have the
unable to.
permissions.
Which one is the pipeline? Simple node build service. This is this one. This should be the execution from a few minutes ago. Hmm. So this is the one from the export, right? But
Yes.
and then I would have thought it's this one, but this is the one from the build that happens afterwards. The hello CI/CD one is this piece. So this one was really not executed. So now let's try if we can make it execute, right? If I understand that thing correctly, I would now need to go over here and would need to say in the commands, I would need to say false
Alt.
and save and release change. And we have one more to go that we wanted to look at.
Let's hope that one worked.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed by this. Maybe it's all simpler if you look at the code, right? If you write this in CloudFormation, maybe it's all simpler, right? But looking at this in the console, it really feels like this is not really easy to use.
The skipping part or the commands part?
Overall, using CodePipeline, right, seems like, okay, I need to manually add a lot of those stages and skip and whatever, right? It's not like I can just go ahead and say, okay, this is a template, I want to get started, right? And actually, we never checked that. Why is my did I release a new change?
there's something running, so it skipped again.
It skipped again. But how do I get the...
So maybe we just set the variable wrong, and therefore it's failing, and when it's failing, it's skipping?
Well, here I need to
Interesting.
add variables maybe, right? Skip stage. So then the error message is not really nice. Because I didn't add the variable to the pipeline, right? So I've now added it and I've set it to true, and maybe then it will not fail anymore. But then I wonder why I was trying to override it. So, okay, now I have a parameter when executing the pipeline, and now I can set it to true.
So I cannot control it from within a pipeline execution.
Yeah,
I
we will.
need to.
I don't know. We will see. I suspect that if you have the variable defined at the top, you can override it.
Okay, maybe there's a specific syntax to export variables.
Good question. Let's see. Code pipeline export variables. Hmm.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. We are here now. Let's see if it works. So now this one skipped.
Did we release a change?
I did. It
Okay.
just went through, but it failed again. Okay, let's try with a different condition maybe. View details. Edit stage. Maybe we just did it wrong.
Maybe go back to the announcement. Was there a detailed blog article maybe discussing it?
I don't know.
Only documentation and product page.
Maybe there is a blog. Does this announcement? Well, this is really interesting. So what we can do now is we can use this parameter over here, and we can say over here, we want to use the stage that we had before, right? So the stage name that we had before is test commands, and then we can react on that test commands thing. So we're going to need to have over here test commands dot test commands. Skip stage is true, then it's going to skip it. Otherwise, it's going to work. So to be honest, I liked the announcement when I read it, but now after going through it, I'm really disappointed, especially on the UI. Right? It really shows you that you need to be an expert of using CodePipeline, and you cannot just get started and trying things out. At least I'm gonna yeah. Don't know. Let's see. So
you need to reference something, including the step name from a previous step to be used, or
that's what I'm understanding, right? So I think over here it says like you choose the variable to compare with, such as, right? But it doesn't give me the option to choose. I actually need to know how to identify those variables. So I guess that I can also react on the the variables of the pipeline itself, but I don't yet know where they are documented. So I'm trying to think about that.
Yeah, probably that one that you specify at the beginning.
Yeah, but then I need to have it like pipeline conditions or dot skip sketch or something like that. So how do I reference that entry level parameters? So over here,
It's still saying failed.
now it's a different error, right?
I'm actually a little bit lost which variables one could use and how to reference them. I would imagine, at least in the UI, to have some help icon or something that help me generate these steps.
I agree. Okay, I would propose that we leave it as we tried and we didn't really make it work, which is a disappointment a little bit, right?
We skipped it.
But let's go on. What else? What else do we have? I think. Did we want to look at this one? Just stage shifting conditions to implement pipeline gates. Yes, this is kind of what we looked at already. So I can now, and we looked at that, define this entry commands when you get into a stage. We just looked at that when trying this out, and yes, we did not get it to work correctly with the variable check, but I can add other rules for going in here, right? And I have rule providers, which means I can react on a CloudWatch alarm. I can check if a deployment window is up and running. Okay, I can integrate with Lambda, which gives me a whole new possibility to integrate with Lambda. This is pretty nice. You can do the same thing in all other CI/CD providers, so it really feels like we're trying to make things work in a similar way. But this was not really a nice thing. This was a thing that was missing before. We already looked at the stage level conditions that we tried to execute. I think that is the other announcement that we had. We just tried to have this one. We failed. That's not a problem. And I think, to be honest, the rest we already looked at of the announcements that we were planning to do and to look at today, Raphael. So let's try to summarize a little bit. What did we learn in the last, and I'm not going to say how many minutes we recorded, what did we learn in the last few minutes?
I learned that the new announcements are not fully supported by CDK for right now, definitely. I learned that CodePipeline gets more attention from AWS, which is a good thing. So they are further developing it, listening to the customers, and try to add new stuff to the product. It is not complete now. We felt that the developer experience is not as good as it could be. So there needs to be further improvements, or at least more resources to learn this stuff and how to get it up and running in an easy way. Yeah, these are things I learned.
Yeah, and I would add to that I learned that CDK, so using CDK to generate code pipelines is simple if you use the L2 and L3 construct. As this is an open source driven development, and AWS has been having some challenges with supporting that. I think it's fair to say that at the moment it's not really nice using that, right? So I'm gonna I'm gonna take this as a learning for myself, right? I was really loving CodePipeline when I used CDK pipelines, but today I was really disappointed with the experience in trying to adapt CodePipeline V2. So I'm going to see if I can reach out to the CDK team here to see if we can improve that again, because that was the only reason for me to actually look at CodePipeline, the possible integration with CDK. And now I don't know where this is going. I'm hoping that after releasing these few videos, or this video, a bunch of the CodePipeline team maybe wants to talk to us and see how they can improve the developer experience for the service. As I personally think that developer tools for at AWS are very important, and I think that's another learning for me. Right, we need to get back into giving more feedback and possibilities to improve these kind of services.
Maybe it's just us that didn't understand the concept. So maybe someone from AWS come along to your show and demo the new features from their perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raphael. It was a pleasure once again, even though we did not achieve what we wanted in whole sense. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, looking forward to do more stuff with you. And you all should know how to reach out, Raphael. If not, there's a link, as always, in the video below. If you have any questions or comments on what we discussed, please feel free to comment on it, and we'll get back to you and see how we can maybe help you also understand better how to use certain things. Bye-bye.
Bye.